Good morning, everybody. It's Thursday, July 25th. Sorry, I thought it was earlier, so I'm a little bit late. I apologize. The video said 8:30. Here we are. We're going to talk about cholesterol and statin drugs and how you can actually start to reverse it more naturally. So stick with me. First off, I want to make a disclaimer. I'm not a doctor. I'm not your clinician. I am not a scientist. I'm just a real world woman who's taking the information that I find that's helped me and putting it out there so you can start to understand your own health better and hopefully start to direct your own health care in a direction that you want it to be. So I'm never giving medical advice. We're displaying or disseminating the information that I get in. So I did work in medical. I'm not a doctor though, and I just have a mind that loves to get information. Hey, Bobby, it's good to see you. So I want to talk about statins. This is one of the things I've had people say. My cholesterol hasn't gone down, and my doctor's upset. How many of you guys would be shocked, interested to know that most of your doctors do not understand your cholesterol panel well enough to understand what's really going on, or they're not taking a look at some calculations and some needs within cholesterol. So I kind of want to break it down for you guys today as best as I can, and then maybe you'll have a better understanding when you look at your own panel. You may be able to look at it with better eyes than your physician. Who knows? We'll take a look. Okay, so we want to talk about cholesterol, and in your cholesterol panel you have a total cholesterol. By the way, welcome in and welcome and thanks for joining. We got to get this information out, because one of the things that I do know is that there are a lot of negative side effects with statin drugs. And my hope is that people can really start to understand this cholesterol issue, why the drugs are causing it to be worse in many cases, and something that you can do that's really simple to start getting your health under control. As we well know, cholesterol generally is very highly linked to your heart, right? So if you're having high cholesterol or hypertension, you could be having a problem. All right, now cholesterol, one thing I want you all to understand before we dive into this is our body, or a couple of things. Our body needs cholesterol. Our brains need cholesterol. We do need it. Our brains function on it. So we're going to see some things as we move along and understanding these statin drugs a little bit better, why they may not be the best solution for you. So let me take a look at my notes, because this is a lot of information this morning. So one of the things with these cholesterol medications is there are a lot of side effects: muscle weakness, tendinopathies, heart problems, a number of issues that we'll kind of cover here in a little bit, and why they're causing those problems. But isn't it interesting that you're doing something to remove cholesterol from your system, and as a result, you're putting tendons and muscles at risk because they also need cholesterol? So why do we see cholesterol as such a bad thing? Well, there's a number of things about cholesterol that you probably haven't been told. And we always, sorry for the language, but kind of bastardize that LDL-B, and actually LDL, or not LDL-B, but just LDL in particular. But what we need to understand is that LDL can be really repairing to the system in the right system. But when we have insulin resistance start to take control, we start to have a lot of problems. And then that's when LDL starts to become a problem, or any cholesterol starts to become a problem. Another thing that I want people to understand as we dive into this is we have this fear of fat. How many of you guys do a low-fat diet? Can you guys put a 1 in if you do a low-fat diet? Because of your cholesterol, because you have hypertension, because your doctor told you that to be heart healthy, you need to eat lean and not have the fat. That you need to get like the no fat, the low fat, the reduced fat, the whatever. How many of you guys have heard that and are doing that? Because I did that for years. Like, let's just be honest. I did that for years. I'm like, oh, yep, fat is creating fat. Fat is creating cholesterol. I've got to reduce my fat. You guys, anybody understand that? If you don't want to put a 1 in, just hit the hearts. So I know somebody's heard me. Just tap and give me hearts if you feel like that's what, what's happening. You eat fat and it turns into cholesterol in your system. So let me know that. And then what I need you to understand is that sugar is actually what's causing the cholesterol problem. We're going to break that down here in a minute. But so let's take a look at like the triglycerides, and let's take a look at a lab panel. So you have your lab panel out, you have a cholesterol number, you have a triglyceride number, you have HDL, you have LDL, and some of those may look high and some of them may look in range. But what we need to know is the ratios of some of those numbers. So your cholesterol number could be high, but if there's ratios in there, your cholesterol to your HDL is within a certain range, then that number being above what the recommended is not really that damaging according to new doctors. So when we look at that total cholesterol and you go, my cholesterol is going up, I thought you said this would help. It does. The system does, and we're going to explain why your cholesterol may be going higher and why that's not always such a bad thing. So I've given you guys a calculation. This one, the first calculation we're going to talk about. Hey, Tammy, it's good to see you this morning. We're going to talk about this first calculation. That's going to give you an idea of how at risk you are for heart disease and insulin resistance. So there is a video in my tab on the how to tell over on TikTok. So you can just click on that link and go start to see these calculations. One of the ones I'm going to give you this morning is not there yet. I will get it in there probably by the end of today. Now, the first calculation, triglycerides divided by HDL. So you're going to find your cholesterol panel, you're going to go to your triglycerides, and you're going to look at that and your HDL. Because what we're trying to determine is something about the LDL, but they currently don't have a calculation for this. So what you want to do is divide triglycerides by HDL. That number, according to the NIH and doctors, should be 2.0 or below, but more likely right now they're talking about that it should be 1.5 or below, and some are even saying they might want that adjusted to 1.0 or below. But I'm going to say 1.5 or below, and you're probably okay with insulin resistance. That's a good marker that things are happening. What we're really trying to see with this is the ratio between the big buoyant type of LDL and the small sticky kind of LDL. That's what this HDL to triglyceride ratio is telling you. So 1.5 or below, right? Triglycerides divided by HDL. That's telling you your risk of heart disease and insulin. Now, if it's 2.0 or above, especially if it's 3.0 or above, you have a problem and you're at high risk for heart disease. And at this point, a lot of doctors are seeing your cholesterol number high, so they want to put you on statin drugs to reduce the cholesterol. We're going to uncover a lot about what that looks like and start to see what's really happening inside your body and why statin drugs, spoiler alert, are oftentimes causing the problem to be worse. Over time, they're causing the problem to be worse, and there's a lot of mechanisms why. So the second calculation you want to look at is, instead of your triglycerides, you want to take a look at your cholesterol divided by your HDL. The total cholesterol number divided by your HDL. And that number should be like between 0 and 5. That's a big range, right? You're never going to see it at 0. By the way, you probably may see it at 2 or 3, and that's totally healthy. Nobody's really ever going to get down to 0. And then 5 or above is you're starting to have a problem with cholesterol and some of these issues that we're going to talk about later. So the other calculation is your total cholesterol divided by your HDL. If it's in that range of up to 5, you're probably healthy. If it's above that, then we're having a problem. Does that everybody get that one? And I'll put the video up later today. Okay. So now, some of the things are this. If you have, when they list it in your labs, they'll say if you're at 3.5, you have about half the risk of the average person for heart disease. So that last calculation, cholesterol divided by HDL, if it's about 3.5, you're at about half the risk for heart disease than the average person. If it's at about 5, you have a normal risk at that point. So you want that number right in the middle to determine your risk of heart disease. But this is all measuring cholesterol. So why does that even matter? We want to take a look at some of the things like between HDL and LDL, and triglyceride is really, it's is something that can get converted into the LDL and the HDL. But they're also triglycerides are a carrier, kind of like insulin. Now your cells have receptors for these cells as well, and the fat cells can create energy in your body. But it all starts to go bad. A couple of things we want to understand is LDL, which we haven't talked about in those calculations, because those calculations are just kind of giving us an idea of what's happening with the LDL. But LDL has many different forms. So you'll see LDL and you'll see VLDL on your labs. The the LDL primarily, there are other forms of it, but the biggest two forms we're going to consider are type A, which is big, buoyant, fluffy LDL that floats around and doesn't really seem to cause a lot of problems. The one that seems to cause problems are the LDL. They're smaller, they're denser, and they're kind of sticky. So those are the ones, and LDL is kind of floating along your bloodstream, and where there's damage, it should go in and plug up those holes and start to help repair the blood vessels. So it's really important for us to have, but when we have too much of it, we start to have a buildup. And what I learned recently is, so I've always said the innermost layer of our blood vessel, right? So we need some LDL, guys. We don't need to get rid of it. It's perfectly healthy and fine. But until we get to some of the things I'm going to talk about in the next few minutes, I was trying to read your oh my God, your name, Jemmy Moon Love. I was trying to read your name and talk, and it wasn't working for me. So back to the LDL. So when I talk about the innermost lining of your blood vessels, I've been a little incorrect, because I've always said the endothelium, right? That's the biggest bulk of cells that are in the closest, most innermost lining. But there is a lining called the, I've got to find my notes. It's called the interna. There's a lining inside your blood vessels. Now, with high levels of sugar, that can get damaged, that lining inside the blood vessels. Now, when LDL is tripping along and trying to fill the gaps, oftentimes the LDL is a little bit toxic at this point as well because of the sugar. We'll go over why. And it slips in the cracks instead of just blocking them up. And it starts to build up in underneath that interna, and that's part of what's causing that cholesterol buildup. Because instead of just blocking it up, there's a crack and LDL keeps going to it, but it kind of keeps slipping through and getting between the endothelium and the interna, and that's causing this big plaque buildup. But it all started with sugar and not fat. So if you're experiencing cholesterol problems, you really got to take a look at the sugar you're eating and not just the fat. Now, there are a couple of things that can cause, part of the reason there's tears are inflammation inside the system. And we need to understand that unhealthy fats, like a lot of your seed oils and especially trans fats, are going to have high amounts of omega-6s and linoleic acids, which can be very damaging to the human body as far as causing inflammation. That inflammation can cause these little tears in the lining, and now LDL is slipping through. The other thing is, when we have high levels of sugar and high levels of insulin, the brain starts to cue the body to create more of this LDL. Is this what shows up as a damaged blood cell, like little half moons in a microscope? I don't have a good answer for that, Jemmy Moon. I would love to, let me take a screenshot of this. I would love to go get a real answer for you before I say that, because again, I'm not a scientist. I'm just taking information that I found pertinent and trying to bring it to you guys, but I would love to look that up and try and figure that out for you. So this is the fat molecules in your blood cells, right? There's so much going on with our blood, and you guys, it's very important. But let's get back to this whole thing. So another thing that happens, okay, so one of the things that happens with insulin resistance is it disrupts the receptors for these fat cells. So we're passing this cholesterol through the body, and the cells need it for energy, right? But insulin resistance is not only slowing down the receptors for the sugar, but it starts to cause those receptors for those fats to be defunct as well. So even though, much like the sugar with insulin resistance, even though your body needs a certain amount of cholesterol, it's unable to get it in. Hey, Bobby, thank you for the love. Um, so the cells are not able to get that energy source in, and then it starts to spill back or stay back in the bloodstream. Now your cholesterol levels in your bloodstream are rising. Some of them can become toxic, and we're going to go over some of that as well. But is it interesting to anyone else to know that insulin resistance is not only causing a problem with your receptors that take in sugar, but they're causing a problem with the receptors that are able to utilize fat for fuel? Because I never knew that. I just knew that there was a problem. I'm just shocked too, Jemmy Moon. Like, I had no idea that insulin resistance caused. I knew that it caused the differentiation in the LDL, right? I knew that insulin resistance was causing more of the type B, but I had no idea that it was interfering with the receptors for our body to use the cholesterol, which is energy in our system. That's pretty interesting to me. So one of the things I want people to understand this morning that we're going to get into is, if you really want to have that cholesterol getting to your cells and understand they need them, we're going to go over some of the tissues that really need them, the cholesterols. We've got to get that inside the cell though, and out of the bloodstream. When it's building up in the bloodstream is when it's a problem. When we're getting this energy, the cholesterol, into our cells, like heart, brain, liver, intestines, all of that, we're much healthier. So we need to eat fats, healthy fats like avocado, extra virgin olive oil, coconut oil, butter, ghee, and the fats from animals that are regularly occurring. Those are really not spiking this cholesterol problem. It's the excess added sugar that is. So if you have a choice, and I've been making some really great, I call it chocolate mousse now, but I made like a little, if I'm having a craving for something sweet, I made something with cream cheese, coconut milk, whole cream, some carnivore protein, and a little bit of salt, because salt gives great flavor. But when I mix it up, it's primarily fats and some protein, but it tastes like an amazing chocolate mousse. No sugar added, none of that. So yeah, there's ways around some of your cravings, but if you lean more into utilizing the fats and allowing the sugars to come down, the receptors for the fat utilization are going to get better. The receptors for your sugar utilization are going to get better. Your body's going to have more energy, because both of these things are just energy in the body. But there's so much more that's happening. And then when we look at the cholesterol in the system and how statins are affecting it, let's just kind of dive into that. So well, back to the damage in the blood cells. Some of the things that are causing the damage, again, are oxidation in the body, inflammation. So trauma that's causing any kind of inflammation can cause those little tears in your interna. And then glycation. So glycation is where sugar makes things sticky. So the sugar, again, is coming into play, right? Inflammation causes insulin resistance to go up and us to have more sugar in our bloodstream. Oxidation adds to this problem, leaving more sugar in our bloodstream. Now we have very sticky blood. And it's like one doctor told me years ago, before I started understanding all this, when I was asking them about diabetes and why does high blood sugar matter, their analogy was, it's like glass shards in your bloodstream. So exactly. The mucus some people get after a Starbucks, and there's so many things to go along with the Starbucks drink. Like the coffee part of it is very, like, the least problem in that. The problem is that if you were to look at a Starbucks cup, and I don't have a cup down here, but if you were to look at a cup from Starbucks and you were to say how much sugar is in here, you could almost just split the cup in half and understand that at least half of that cup is nothing but sugar. And so when you drink a Starbucks and you start to have this inflammatory response, like Jemmy said, clearing your throat and mucus, that's all because of the amount of sugar in those drinks. And sugar is causing the problem. You guys, we don't have to get rid of it, but we just have to stop having so much of it that it's causing this damage. We can have sugar. We just need to not have as much as we're having. One of the reasons this happened, by the way, is when Ancel Keys what is it, almost 70 years ago or over 70 years ago now, said that sugar or that fat was causing the problem with cholesterol. And by the way, there was no science behind that. He had a hypothesis. We've now disproven that hypothesis. But what happened is, as a nation, we started going, oh, shoot, if cholesterol is the problem, we got to get that out. We got to get the fat out. And as naturally as this happens, when you take fat away from foods, the foods have less flavor. So the food industry is like, now what do we do? Well, they started bumping up the amount of sugar in our foods to make it flavorful enough that you will buy it and continue to buy it. The benefit for them has been that because of that increased sugar, we crave more of that sugar. We're eating more of their product. Now we're getting sick and we're passing them on to their family members in big pharma who are giving us statin drugs and cholesterol drug or statin drugs are cholesterol drugs and heart medications and metformin and all of these other medications along with that. Today we're going to talk about statin drugs. Yeah, we consume so much. And here's the thing. One of the things that I found is when I do this more natural solution, my food budget is about half. I'm not consuming as much of the packaged, so bagged, boxed, barcoded foods. In fact, I have very little of that in my house outside of the barcodes on the steak or the chicken that I buy. But my food budget's gone down drastically because I'm not constantly pouring in chemicals into my body that are now making me sick. And then I got to go get a prescription to deal with that. And then I got to go to the doctor off and on to deal with that. So it's just this overall, you guys, the thing that they say where it's too expensive to eat healthy is really just another marketing ploy to get you to think that eating ramen noodles and crappy toxic food out of a box is okay. That's really what it is. And it's not okay. Okay, it's just not okay. So when we're talking about cholesterol and how sugar is causing the problem, all these bagged, boxed, barcoded foods, what I want people to understand too is that it's not just the sugar content. Now we have all of these other additives that are really not necessary, and your body just doesn't know what to do with many of those additives. And is it any wonder we're getting sick as a result of it? That's a little off track, but let's talk about this LDL and all of that again. So we're talking about the small cells of LDL, right? The small sticky B ones. Those are the ones that are going in and trying to really heal up what's happening. But in the presence of sugar, it can't do its job and its job gets defunct. Now we're putting LDL is getting through the cracks instead of blocking them, and it's creating a cholesterol buildup under that innermost thin layer of the interna. And along the way, as the LDL is not getting utilized properly because receptors are down, it starts to become toxic. Yeah, Skittles. I did not know that. Titanium dioxide. It took me a while, Jemmy Moon, to stop eating a lot of stuff because the promise is that you can have the foods you love and do the system, and you can absolutely do that. But at 60 years old, I understand now that there's a lot of damage that's been done to my body by eating that way all my life. Now I'm having to up my efforts to regain my health. So part of the reason I'm here talking is hopefully y'all don't have the mindset that I had, like, it's not going to happen to me. I'm totally fine. My labs look great. I'm good. Because behind the scenes, all of these symptoms that I have up here is what is linking us to insulin resistance, and yet it's getting missed. Thank you, Jemmy Moon, because that's exactly what I want to do. Like I have heart problems from long-term hypertension. I lost my gallbladder. I've lost 3 joints. I don't want that for anybody else. So I'm here trying to educate on some of this stuff so you guys can understand. Now, I am going to be linking this back to a system. Understand that I am going to link it back to a system that's actually reducing cholesterol without all the damaging side effects, and it's real food, plant-based, gluten-free, and halal. So we're going to talk about that in a little bit, but let's get through the part about the cholesterol. And I know that I'm imperfect in my delivery. I'm just doing the best as I can to help you guys start to understand some things about our diet and nutrition that are really causing us to be ill. Lori, thank you. Gemini, thank you for the love. Okay. So When those LDL become damaged and oxidized, they can start to cause more of that problem inside the cell, besides the glycation and the stickiness and the glass shardiness of the sugar. So now we're compounding the problem. But when that interna gets uh, oxidated, that LDL will slip through. We've talked about that. Now, what happens is your body has these little Pac-Men, that there's LDL that's defunct. Your body says, okay, we can't take it up as energy. It's not going into the cells as energy. Your body senses that it's damaged, and so it sends out these things called macrophages. And just think of them like little Pac-Men. They're coming along, gobbling up all these LDL that are left in the trail that your body assumes are toxic, and your body, because your body doesn't know what to do with this oxidized LDL. Can't take up the cholesterol that you need. It's left in the bloodstream causing damage. So now in come these macrophages, which are just trying to gobble that up. Well, with every action, there's an equal reaction, right? So when the macrophage eats up that LDL, it now turns into a foam cell, and that's causing even more problems in the body. One of the things that's damaging the LDL, that's causing this tears inside the system, that's causing the cholesterol buildup, can be statins, causing oxidation of the LDL and then causing the problem to get worse. Is that interesting? That in order to reduce your total cholesterol, some of these statin drugs are actually causing more problems in the finer details of what's happening with your blood, and you're getting worse, and they're giving you more of the statins to try and reduce the problem that the statins are causing to get worse in the first place. So those foam cells then become that plaque inside your cells, so, or inside your bloodstream. Again, let's just, I'm going to keep coming back to this, that sugar is the problem. You guys, I've been doing this system called 25 days. I'll talk about it more later. But one of the things is I've been eating a lot less, way less sugar, and yet I'm watching my ketone levels and my blood sugar levels change throughout this whole time. I've been able to notice now that I'm eating much cleaner what carbohydrates actually start to spike my glucose the worst, and what's reducing my ketones the worst. It's interesting how much sugar actually causes in the system. If you're going to have sugars, let's break it down to this. Have the natural ones, naturally occurring, like your fruits and vegetables, especially above ground and darkly colored fruits and vegetables, and stop tearing the skin off. What we really need is fiber attached with those carbohydrates. Anybody can look up low glycemic or high glycemic foods. Make note of that list. If your diet is predominantly high glycemic, meaning it converts into glucose and sugar in the system too quickly, if your diet is predominantly those high glucose food or high glycemic foods, you have a problem. And then in that way, you're going to need to shift your eating a bit. Yeah, so I just did a video last night on thyroid. So after this live, one of my most recent videos was about thyroid and how insulin resistance is impacting that. Maybe go watch that, Jemmy. Hopefully it will make some more sense as to why all of this is linked in. So, by the way, cholesterol, you guys, cholesterol, I just saw a random note, and cholesterol is what our sex hormones are made out of. So if you're concerned about having proper hormone levels as you age. I'm 60, postmenopausal, right? I'm very concerned about my hormones. Well, your hormones cannot be produced without cholesterol. So that's progesterone, estrogen, testosterone, DHEA. Those all need cholesterol to be produced. So if you are doing a low cholesterol diet, if you're trying to get that cholesterol out of your system, how does your body produce even your sex hormones? But it's not just your sex hormones. So, but that's a pretty important part, right? When we look at our overall health and PCOS and a number of these other things, it all links back to sugars and the excessive amounts of sugars that we're eating today. So there's a number of things that cause insulin resistance, and we can talk about those. One of the other things, okay, so let's get into the statins. One of the things that statin drugs do is they increase the receptors on the cells so that the cells will utilize the cholesterol because our body needs it, right? So this is one of the things the statin drugs is probably doing right, or trying to do right. it's increasing those receptors. So the cells are like, hey, cholesterol, come here, come here, come here, I need you. And then it's the premise is that it's going to allow more of that cholesterol in. So great, the LDL-A is getting in and providing energy, but the LDL-B that's now been damaged and oxidized because of high sugar cannot get into that cell, because if you've listened to me before, your cells are very protective of what they let into them. So those receptors see this LDL that's been oxidized and damaged as a threat, and it doesn't allow it in your system. So now the LDL is continuing to build up in your bloodstream, prompted by the statins. So the statins are filtering out all the good stuff and getting it in, but it's leaving all this damaged stuff. It's really not taking those up. So that's continuing to build in your system. Your overall cholesterol is going down. Cells are using it. LDL-B is still sticky and icky and out there causing plaque and problems in your body. So is it really the overall cholesterol we want to deal with, or do we want to make sure that we're not damaging the fat cells that we have? Fat cells are energy, okay? One of the other things is that our liver is a big part of this process. So in a normal system, when we have too much fat, it just kind of goes back through the liver and it gets broken down and repackaged for use for later. The liver is really good at packaging up energy so that we can have it for later. But that cholesterol is going back into the liver, and we start to have fatty liver because we're inundating the body with all of this excess cholesterol that's being created from all the excess sugar. That's a very, very simplified view of it, but basically that's what's happening. By the way, you guys, if you're really interested in this, I did write a short blog post. I'm getting it into the website today, and there will be a blog post about all these things that are happening with statin drugs. You're so welcome, Jemmy Moon. So look for the blog post later today. The other day I talked about why calories don't count. So that blog post is up, and it's simply, all you have to do is type in Brilliant Health Blog into Google, and it's going to take you to that blog. It's new for me, so we're getting content in there as much as possible. But this content in a blog post will be in there later today, so you can come back and reference what's happening with statin drugs and why there's good to them and why they're causing so much problem. Now, when your cells are not getting in that cholesterol and you're getting more of this oxidized, sticky LDL, your body's not getting in energy from the cholesterol, right? There are some cells that are really getting distraught by this. Your heart needs cholesterol. Your heart needs cholesterol as energy, but it needs healthy cholesterol and not the damaged, oxidized cholesterol that we're getting out of our body because of sugar interfering. So one of the things that statins do is they block this thing called, I keep forgetting, HMG CoA reductase. So that helps break down your cholesterol or your triglycerides into things like CoQ10 and cholesterol. So if the statin drugs are blocking that HMG CoA reductase, now we cannot reduce that triglyceride into the cholesterol. We cannot reduce this fat in our system into cholesterol and CoQ10. Why is that important? CoQ10 is responsible for about 95% of the energy in our body. So now we're blocking our body being able to create CoQ10 when we're taking statin drugs. That's why so many people on statin drugs are supplementing with CoQ10, because their body cannot produce it in the presence of those drugs. And it's easy to understand those drugs when we say statin, because it's going to be like orlistat, simvastatin. The drug will end with statin, right? So that's how you know what those are. And all of them, by the way, have had some study that show that it causes muscle weakness and nerve damage. Now, if we know that we're not producing CoQ10, and we know that we're reducing energy in our system, and we know that our skeletal muscle is probably the biggest user overall of our energy, why do we have muscle weakness and pain? Simply because we don't have the CoQ10, we don't have the fats that give those muscles energy, and they just can't function properly. and it starts to thin out and break down your ligaments and joints, and you start to have tendinopathy and tendinitis and all of that stuff. I've talked about it before from a different angle, how insulin resistance is causing all of this to happen. So everybody ready to hear some good news, or should we go on? I do want to say this. When we do this with the statin drugs, it's making our liver work harder because it's trying to recycle these fats that just are not being recognized by the cell. So it's trying to recycle that, and it's being overworked. But some of the other tissues that need it besides the muscle and are your heart. Your heart, like I said, needs cholesterol. If you're not getting the proper energy, as in CoQ10, to your heart, because those statin drugs are blocking it, now your heart's not getting enough energy to function properly. So how is it that a drug that's meant to help your heart is actually causing all of these problems, increasing your risk for plaques and decreasing the energy to the very heart that you're trying to protect? I'm going to invite you to put that in your pocket and think about it, and think if that's really the direction you want to go. Now, there are times when statin drugs can be life-saving. Not gonna deny that. Okay, so I'm not ever gonna say that there is no use for any drug. But for most of us, is statin drug, yep, ignorance makes us sicker and the wealthy wealthier. Correct, Jemmy? So I agree with that completely. In fact, I heard Candace Owens say yesterday, whether you love her or hate her or on the fence about her or whatever, she said something about conspiracy theorists that really hit home. And really, it is a programming thing. They use the word to try and shame you. So some people would consider that statement to be conspiracy theorists, and what it is just reality. All right. So when we have that, one of the other, so the liver needs the energy, can't get it, but is being overworked. So let's look at that piece. Your liver is being asked to do more work, but it can't get the energy it needs. And so it's doing more with less nutrition. And what happens? You start to have a shutdown in your liver, and you start to have liver problems like fatty liver, because it's being, I mean, think about it. If you were told you couldn't have any food, you couldn't have any energy, but you had to double the work you were doing, the physical activity you were doing in the day, how long would you be able to last under those conditions? And yet that's what we're asking our liver to do in the presence of sugar and statin drugs. Okay. The other place that I want to talk about is your brain. Your brain is only about 2% of your body weight, but yet it uses up about 20% of the energy in our body. The brain needs both glucose and it needs cholesterol to do its job. Now, because of insulin resistance, we're blocking some of the energy to the brain through the blood-brain barrier. We're just not able to get enough energy in. The glucose is really starting to affect that. But now when we add statin drugs, because we're worried about cholesterol now, those statin drugs are blocking the energy of cholesterol getting to the brain. Now you're fatigued, you're anxious, you're tired, you're having all kinds of mood disorders, and you just feel depressed and overwhelmed, because your brain cannot get the energy in it needs, and statin drugs can often make that whole process even worse than just a body on sugar. You knew which part, Jemmy? Like, it's just crazy, isn't it? And you guys, I love doing these talks because the questions you ask me force me to go out and do some more research and find more answers. And that's really, really just like, I know I get mind blown sometimes. And I get mind blown when my reality has to shift, when what I thought I knew about science changes because of new science. Dr. Bickman was talking about this whole thing, and I need to pull up that. I need to remember what that was. So sex hormones, we've talked about that. Okay, so now let's talk about this natural solution that works. It is the system that I use. And the system that I use is pretty amazing because it's just 2 products that are gluten-free, halal, made from real food. We need to repeat all of this till it sinks in, right? What about Zetia? I'm not as familiar with Zetia, Rosa. Let me take a look at that one. If it's a statin drug, it probably falls in this. Zetia is a marketing name for, let's just take a look. Let me take a look at Zetia real quick and see what I can find on Zetia. That's not one that I've Zetia. So at first glance, let's see, Zetia contains active drug ezetimibe. Okay, cholesterol absorption inhibitors. So you know what? Let me do some research on that one because it doesn't out and out classify it as a statin, but it's also trying to reduce the absorption of cholesterol. So again, if we understand that our brain, our heart, our liver, our muscles all need cholesterol, and we're taking a drug that's reducing the absorption of it, what happens to the energy to those all important pieces of your body? Just think about that for a minute. I'll do some research on Zetia and see what I can find, okay? But I don't have all of that information this morning. So this paper that where did I leave it? Oh, maybe it's over here. Blood biomarker profiles. Oh, this is interesting. That's why I was going to bring this up. Before I get into the natural solution, there is a paper called, and I'll show you guys right now. This paper right here. Oh, let's got to get this off so you guys can see that. A little slow on the uptake, you guys. Okay, so this paper was talking about how people with the highest cholesterol levels had the longest lives. Okay. It was a 35-year study that followed people of the Swedish Amorous. Okay. So this is a long study on how cholesterol is affecting the body. These people, the ones with the highest cholesterol levels, were the ones who lived the longest. Again, why is this happening? It's because our body needs it. Our body needs cholesterol. What we need is less sugar that's causing the cholesterol absorption problems in the first place. Why do they threaten you with high cholesterol meds? Well, so there's a couple of reasons, and I heard a doctor talking about this. Now, it seems to be the standard of care, right? We have to watch that. So if you go into a doctor and you have a heart problem or a cholesterol problem, and the doctor does not, wrong way, there we go. And the doctor does not prescribe you the medications that are the standard of care, they can be found liable if something goes wrong. So there's that big piece, right? That's a pretty big piece. If they know they're going to be liable, if they don't give you what's considered to be the standard of care, they're gonna prescribe that. And I mean, I think there are some doctors who are saying this is what I need to be giving you, but here's some other things going on. But it all is driven from the drug industry knowing that this is the case. And so you guys, the lobbyists in this country, come on now, this is done. There, go away. The lobbyists who work in behalf of these food and drug companies really don't have your best interest at heart. They have their bottom line at heart. And that's just a truth. Okay, that's just a truth out there. They're going to go, how did lobbyists allow us to have Coke or soda products in our schools? Because they took the backdoor approach of saying that it was racist to not offer it. And so then they were pressured into allowing these very toxic drinks into our schools. Lobbyists do a lot, and they have everything to do with this whole cholesterol and medication issue in the first place. You guys can go do your own research on that, but that's really what's probably happening. When we have these studies that show that high cholesterol levels are actually creating health and longevity for people, we have to sit back and wonder why. Yes, we've been told to have these cholesterol meds. Who's benefiting from us having cholesterol meds that are actually making the cholesterol worse for most of us? So sad we've been lied to for so long about everything. Yeah, we have, you guys. And I'm very quiet about some of the things I study and look at. I have this puppy dog who's staring me down right now. I'm sure he wants to go out, so I'm gonna have to go get him out in a minute. But all right, let's get to the solution, you guys. I want to get to the solution really quick because I think it's super important. So if we know that sugar is really the problem, cholesterol is not the problem that it's been made out to be. We have a number of things causing that cholesterol to be toxic. Statin drugs are one, sugar is another one. Then if we understand that our body needs cholesterol, our body needs to take cholesterol up, we understand that insulin resistance is not only causing problems with receptors for sugar, but our other energy source, fats. Now we can start to understand the real root of the problem, and it simply is excess amounts of sugar. When we're told to eat every 2 hours, and I'm working on a blog post for this one as well. This big debate over we need to eat 6 small meals or we need to intermittent fast. Metabolic scientists, let's stop right there and say this. Metabolic scientists, guys like Dr. Bickman, who literally study fat cells in petri dishes every single day to see how it's affecting our body, will tell you that intermittent fasting is the thing to fix your metabolism. Eating 6 small meals a day does not fix your metabolism. It actually long-term makes it worse. So another thing they said is when we're told to eat 6 times a day, they've done some studies and it showed that people who were following that method were actually eating up to 16 times a day. So if we understand that when we eat and we deliver glucose making stuff, uh, starch chains, and all the fructose, glucose. When we eat that, it spikes our insulin. And we're eating now 16 times a day instead of just 5 or 6. We're spiking our insulin every time we put food in our mouth. Our insulin says, I can never go down. You're training me to stay high. I'm going to be high all the time. And now we start to have all these other receptor problems. We can't use cholesterol. We can't use sugar. We're just having issues throughout our system. So obviously, the thing is to get the sugar down. How did our sugar get so high besides the fact that we're being told to eat so often? They stripped fiber away. So now fiber's not there. Fiber slows down the absorption of the sugar in the first place. It helps slow down the absorption of cholesterol. So it's not that you're not getting it. You're getting healthy amounts and not power punches of these things into your system like you are when you're not getting fiber in. So fiber is key, you guys. You hear me talk about fiber a lot. Unfortunately, even our raw organic foods have been changed so they don't have enough fiber in them. I want you to think about this. Every time you eat protein, you need fat to go along with it. The membrane around your cells, even in your blood vessels, is made up of fat. And so if you're not having a good amount of actual fat in your system, your body can't create the membranes that it needs to hold the tissue. Now, with sugar, fiber is helping you reduce the sugar, and it actually does help reduce how much sugar gets dissolved, plus when the sugar gets dissolved or the rate it gets dissolved at. So that's helping that. The particular fiber that I use is a blend of fibers. It's 7 different soluble and insoluble fibers. And that's a whole other topic for another day, but because I have a dog whining at me. But with that combination of fibers, a single source fiber, most of the ones you guys are used to using, will reduce a blood sugar spike by about 10% if you add it before you eat. The specific fibers that I'm using have now recently been proven to reduce a blood sugar spike up to 37% when taken with your meal. Because our foods are so absent of fiber, if you're having any kind of carbohydrate, you need to make sure you're getting in fiber, and that's part of the system. So my fiber looks like this, and you guys, it's super simple. I've done this so many times in the past. I'm going to do it again today because I oops. I did something to myself. I'm going to have to drink this water. Fiber is key, right? Fiber is key. If you're taking in any kind of carbohydrates, fiber is key. It's going to make you feel fuller longer. It's going to slow down this cholesterol and sugar absorption, and it's just going to started with walks with my dogs in the neighborhood. Yeah, so this guy is a big Great Dane. I cannot take him on a walk. I will be destroyed. The other dog, the beautiful old black lab, I take her on a walk twice a day while I'm at my kid's house. These are not my dogs. Okay, so I want to come back to this. All right, so 2-step system that I do. It's the fiber. I do it every time I eat. You only have to do it once, but I love to do it at least twice a day before I eat every time. It helps me feel fuller longer. It's feeding the good gut microbiome. It's helping me slow down that cholesterol absorption, but still allowing me to have it. It's increasing my nutrient absorption because it's not allowing foods to pass through my intestinal tract so quickly. It allows me to hang on to that. And as it passes through the small intestine, I give my body the best chance of reabsorbing nutrients from the food I ate. In insulin resistant state, and especially with high sugars, you are not getting nutrient absorption. And this is part of the reason why you're having energy problems. So it's not just the sugar and the fat. You're getting in too much of the sugar and fat, but you're not getting in the nutrients like A, B, C, D, E, K, all of those vitamins and minerals that we really need. Um, He's getting stir crazy. Oh my God, he's going to go nuts here in a minute. He's the size of a horse. Okay, so this helps with all of that. The second part, or the first part of it, is a tea that I have every morning. It's been in my mug right here all morning, and I'm almost done drinking this one. The tea is a yerba mate tea, and it's very highly concentrated and purified. He's the sweetest dog, but he's a big dummy. He's over there tearing up one of his plushie toys, which there's not a plushie toy in the world that we can have for more than a day. Okay, so the tea. It's giving me antioxidants. Remember, we talked a lot about inflammation and oxidation in the cells. Part of the problem with cholesterol is those two things, right? This is delivering antioxidants and anti-inflammatories to my system. In that way, it's helping me with this whole cholesterol problem more naturally. I'm not blocking any receptors. I'm actually making receptors more sensitive by doing these two products and some intermittent fasting. It gives me energy without the crashes. It gets components to my brain that allow my brain to utilize serotonin and dopamine more efficiently. It allows my brain to cue for things like leptin and ghrelin and the thyroid hormones and even estrogen more naturally when I start to become more insulin sensitive. Now, this also helps me feel satiated so that I can make it through a fast. Because many people, how many of you guys feel like, oh my God, she used the word fast? It's like a dirty word for many people. Fasting is just like, okay, in the back of your mind, you're probably thinking fasting works, but it's not for me because I can't go without eating for that long. I can't do this. She said fast, we're done. Well, the tea helps you. It shuts down hunger in your brain. It shuts down hunger in your gut and allows you to make it through that fast. Now what we're doing is we're switching without the statin drugs, right? We're switching between a sugar source for energy to a fat source for energy, and we're allowing the more natural use of our cholesterol in our system when we're insulin sensitive and when we have all of this goodness from these two real products. So anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, increases satiety, gives you energy, gives you mental clarity, has a full panel of vitamins naturally occurring in it, and it's just has so many good things going on for your body that I can't describe them all now. But the tea in the morning and then a tea in the afternoon when my energy starts to fade and I need more mental clarity again, and that's it. Those two teas and at least one of the fiber before my biggest meal with carbohydrates. Now, I've allowed my body natural access to good cholesterols, but I'm going to not lie. I also pay attention to the fats that I put in my body. Not just every fat is okay. Those seed oils, high in linoleic acids, high in omega-6s that can cause more inflammation, causing all of this circle of damage throughout the body. So we want to keep those at bay. Use things like avocado oil, coconut oil, extra virgin olive oil, butter and ghee. I don't know what he's pawing at. And those are the fats you should focus on. Your body will thank you. You'll find you have more energy. You'll find your mental clarity gets better. You'll find your heart actually starts to get better. Again, please work with your doctor and I'm not going to say nutritionist, but make sure your doctor knows what you're doing. And especially if you're on statin drugs currently, don't just stop them. Don't just stop them. Work with your doctor and coming off of them. I want to come back at some point and do more about cholesterol and why the numbers in the cholesterol panel are so misunderstood, because a higher cholesterol level does not necessarily mean bad. It's some ratios in there. I'll put that last ratio, the cholesterol to triglyceride and the resulting number in that can tell you whether you're having a cholesterol or heart your risk for heart attack. Okay. So know that this is all I do in the day is this fiber. I usually drink it 2 to 3 times a day, and I have 2 of the tea a day, and that's what reversed my diabetes, my hypertension, and started getting my body healing up. Now, I also do a couple of things. These 6 simple tips, along with that system, are what I've done. I get in fiber first. This package, again, 7 different soluble and insoluble fibers. So much better to have the complex that's addressing multiple areas with fiber than just a single source fiber. And most of the single source fibers out there are psyllium or something similar that are made to clean you out and make you poop. What if we stop thinking about fiber as a pooping agent, and then we start to think about it as something that helps us regulate cholesterol and sugar and nutrient absorption, and as well as helping us use the bathroom regularly? That's what's in here. So Jemmy Moon, if you go to my profile up here, and that's where you're going to find the product anyway. There's a web page, and on the web page at the very top, there's one that says Feel Great System, and it has all of the stuff listed in it. And I'm doing another blog post that will be out hopefully before the weekend is over on fiber and the specific fibers in this and how it's working, so that you guys can understand. And yes, my blog is always like leading back to how more natural resources, and specifically this one, can help with all of these disorders and diseases. Because I had almost everything on this list, and I had no idea that it was all linked to one thing called insulin resistance, and that those 2 real food products could actually help. Now, before I hop off, before this dog screams at me some more, it is in the PDR if that's important to you. This is in the prescriber's digital reference. Your physician can look it up and find it. We are some of the only real food products in that resource. You can't buy, beg, or steal your way into it. They're a third party. They look at, is there research, is there clinical data, and there is enough clinical data with this system that allows it to be in the PDR. So if you want links to that, just message me and I can get you those links. But we are there. Your doctor can look it up. In fact, we have a number of doctors who are now prescribing it to their patients. And so that's a whole other thing. But this is a real food product. It's not carnivore, so it is gluten-free. It fits with a vegan lifestyle. It's halal. So you guys, it's amazing, and it really does change your whole perspective on health and your whole health altogether by addressing insulin resistance. I want to be careful and say that what the system is doing is addressing insulin resistance, blood sugar control, cholesterol control, and through that, it's helping us with the root cause of all of these other things. Now, a couple other things. It has a 90-day money-back guarantee. It has a quality guarantee, and it has a low price guarantee, meaning you'll never pay more for it than I pay for it. We all pay the same price when you're doing this. And it's tested at 3 points during the process. One of them is before we ever even start to process the botanicals, to make sure that they're actually the botanicals that we're looking for. And then it gets tested again midway, and then it gets tested again before it ever gets shipped out. So if ever a batch of this stuff shows up to not have the components that we tell you it has in it, it doesn't go out to market. It's tossed. So we have that guarantees. Now, if you buy off of Amazon, eBay, Walmart, any of those, you're not getting those guarantees because they're not authorized distributors, and the company has no control over what those products are. They've not authorized that anywhere for us. So you need to order from an authorized distributor in order to get the guarantees, and make sure that you're even getting the right product. I've had people who call me and said, well, I ordered and I didn't hear from you, or I ordered and I didn't get this support. It's because they ordered off of Amazon. And so we have no way of tracking that, either the product or who bought or what. So just do yourself a service. Plus, those people, when I end up talking to them, have paid $100 to sometimes $200 a month more than they need to, which is ridiculous. It's almost doubled the price of the system when they order there. So just use the link. And if you want, I'm good with you just hanging out and watching some more lives to decide if that's for you, because the last thing I want is for people to do something that's not right for them. But understand, you can have the food you want and do the system and still get your health back. The 6 simple tips. The dog's distracting me. Get fiber in first. We talked about that. Prioritize protein. I'm working on a whole chat about protein, how much you can get in at a sitting, what your body does with it. We'll talk about that on another day. But then, so fiber, proteins, don't fear fats enough. Name the fats that I'm going to talk about, but stay away from the seed oils. And then limit your carbs, especially bagged, boxed, bar-coded carbs. Get rid of those and start to focus on things that come naturally from your foods. Understand also that protein does give you an energy source that can be broken down into glucose. It doesn't always require a ton of carbohydrates to feed your body. You want to do some intermittent fasting. Remember, the more you eat, the more you're spiking your insulin. You want to keep your insulin levels down so that you're sensitive to it, so that you can not have all your cells shutting down. So intermittent fasting, I fast 16 hours a day and have 2 meals a day. Sometimes I throw in a protein shake either with the meal or in between to make sure I'm getting that protein that I need in. I aim to eat about 50 grams of protein in a sitting. And yes, your body does just fine with it. I'll work on that later. And then move your body. You guys, we are too sedentary. That's one of the biggest problems why, or besides the sugar, why we're having an insulin resistance problem in the first place is we're just not moving, making our body need to use the energy that we're putting in. So those 6 things, and join me live tomorrow. We're going to talk about something to do with insulin resistance. If anybody has something you want me to talk about, I do have Zetia on the list. Let me know and I'll do some research and we'll come back and talk about it. How do I get my doctor to prescribe it? He never heard of it and is willing to learn. So there's a site there called Unicity Science. Now he can go read about it on the PDR. Okay, so he can look it up on the PDR. You can just send him to my page and he can go look up the information there that's listed there. But he definitely can find it on the PDR. But if he wants to see the research and science behind it, there is a website called Unicity Science, and it's just unicity.science.org, I believe is the address for it. And there's a ton of studies on how the fiber has worked, and it's been proven, and clinical studies with that. We've had studies with like the Cleveland Clinic and the University of Sydney. So the top heart health hospital in the world and the makers of the glycemic index have both done studies about these products. And so there's a ton of information out there. PDR, Unicity Science, or my webpage, and he'll start to find information. I hope that helps. Okay. Yeah, and I want them to know this with the doctors. If he's willing to learn, please send him there. I am not a doctor. He can reach out and ask, and I can get him answers if he might not, but have him at least go to Unicity Science and the PDR, and he'll find the products there. Now, with the prescription part, you guys, this is a caveat. It's not on the formulary for any insurance companies. So we look at big food, big pharma, insurance, they're all tied together, right? This is not listed on a formulary for insurance. So are they going to just pay for it up front? No, they're not. Your doctor can prescribe it, you can buy it, you can take the receipt and the prescription and turn it into your insurance to get reimbursement. Many people have been able to use their HSA. I'm not going to say that every insurance company is going to do that, but why not give it a shot? Okay. By the way, when we're talking about that, how many of you ever gotten a 90-day money-back guarantee on any of the medications your doctor gave you? How many of you ever got that this is going to improve everything, and we're not going to increase your dose, but you're going to get your money back in 90 days if all of these great health benefits don't happen for you? Has anybody gotten that from any medication you've ever been prescribed? Because I never have. Yet this does it because there's so much science behind it and shows that it works. All right, you guys, I will do a video later today when the blog post is all written and up, so you can go back and read more about statin drugs. And not all of the information is in there because that would be a big, long blog post that nobody wants to read. If there's more information on some of the things like the calculations or what happens with cholesterol, let me know and I'll be happy to do something on that. You'd miss my advice when it was in the kitchen, when I was in the kitchen doing videos, or what foods that you should eat. You guys, my day yesterday was actually, I had a day that I was very shaky and whatnot from my heart, right? So, um, it's been because I've been in transition and traveling so much. I've not been in my own kitchen, and right now I'm at my kid's house, and I don't even have all the stuff. But I can do more of that content. So my meal yesterday, my meals were this. Crazy as it sounds, yes, I used the system, but I had a big old ribeye steak coated in a ton of or a good amount of seasoning, and that was it. I had the steak, I sliced it up, I put it in a bowl with just its own natural juices. That's what I ate. Um, the other meal, because I just wasn't up for eating, I had some of that mousse that I talked about, which is fat and protein, and that's what I ate. The other day I had some salad, and I noticed that my glucose numbers went up and my ketones went down. Crazy. So it's as simple as just asking him. Once he looks it up in the prescribe, so the question was, need to know how to get my doctor to prescribe. Just have him look it up in the PDR. He can, and tell him that he can write a prescription, that you'll have to order it. You order it, take your receipt and his prescription and turn it in. You just have to ask him, hey doc, I want to try this. There's a chance that my insurance will pay for it. It's in the PDR. Will you please write me a prescription? Okay. And that's it. And either he is or he's not. Okay, if he looks it up in the PDR and it's there, he should be able to just write the prescription. So I want to tell you an interesting thing. Your doctors are educated by pharmacy reps. Those pharmacy reps are educated by the pharmaceutical company. I have one of the ladies I work with, Wendy, used to do was a clearinghouse for these studies, and she said they would get like 20 studies in, and this is true for anybody, but they would get 20 studies in, and maybe two of the studies showed benefit that was in alignment with what they wanted to say, but the other 18 showed something different and actually showed negative impact, or that it wasn't working. Those 18 studies, because they're paid for by the pharmaceutical company, get thrown away. And the two that they choose are the ones that get put out. Okay. So your doctor is being educated by pharmaceutical reps who are basing their results, their knowledge on studies that are highly skewed towards them. And that's where that comes from. I worked in medical offices enough to sit through enough drug rep lunches to see what they do. Now, the doctor has the opportunity to go read all the research, and some of them do, but most of them don't. They're just like, oh, the company's telling me this does this. And so, on a very over level of what the drug does, because most doctors in their heads are like, I don't have time. They've done the studies, they have the research. So, I got lipstick all over. So, I'm going to use this drug. So, from Pakistani. So, yeah. So, he also has an opportunity. We have a cardiologist who actually is a distributor now. We have cardiologists, we have attorneys, we have realtors, we have a lot of really highly professional people who are distributors just like me, because they see the efficacy of the product. So I'm more than willing to have a chat with him if he needs to, but he can find all of the information online. From insulin resistance. So Sunny, you're coming in at the very end of this. I'll be back live at 8:30 in the morning, but I'm going to give it to you again. What I do is 6 simple principles of fiber first, prioritize protein, don't fear fats, but we're talking about specific fats. Limit your carbs, especially bagged, boxed, barcoded carbs. Do some time-based fasting or eating, meaning intermittent fasting. A 16-8 is where I'm at. And then move your body. Now, to make all of that easy and to really amplify the effects of all of that, I do this natural plant-based system called, right here, that's 2 teas, yerba mate, highly concentrated yerba mate, nothing like you find on the market anywhere. I've always said 375 times the chlorogenic acids, which is what I had been told early on. But they're saying now at least 20 times, because some other companies are starting to up their game, right? So most over-the-counter Unimate drinks that you're going to get, this has 20 times the chlorogenic acids. As opposed to just like a bagged tea, this has about 375 times. And chlorogenic acids are really amazing for your body in a number of ways. I have videos on that. I drink this tea twice a day. Helps me with blood glucose, helps me with energy, helps me with heart health, gives me vitamins and minerals, and just gets nutrients into my body while making fasting easy because I'm not hungry and I have energy. And then I use this, which is 7 different types of fiber, soluble and insoluble, and each fiber has a different purpose. Each fiber that's in here is in here because it's been proven to help with blood glucose and blood lipid regulation. But it also has a panel of vitamins and minerals specifically designed to help boost metabolic health. And then it has phytosterols that are really great for your heart. So this is not just a fiber. It's a pre-meal drink that's actually giving you help by helping you feel fuller, by expanding in your gut, and thereby increasing satiety, allowing you to hold on to those nutrients longer so you don't have breakthrough hunger. It's slowing down how much you're going to eat in a sitting because it is filling up your gut, so you're less likely to overeat. But most importantly, it's regulating those blood sugars and the blood glucose or the blood cholesterol. So that's what I do. And it's gluten-free, halal, and it is natural food products sweetened with stevia. That's it. 2 teas and a fiber every day. That's what I do in combination with those 6 simple tips, and reversed my diabetes. Reversed it. I had a A1C of 7.4 and climbing. It's now 5.3. My lipid levels are all in normal range. And I've overcome almost all of these things up here and are just continually working to get my health back with this. Now, can I have hamburgers? Can I have pizza? Yes. Would I do it every day? No. But this allows me to eat the foods I love while maintaining my health because it's helping me put back what the food industry has stripped out of my food so that my body can deal with it naturally. See the doggy nose? I gotta go. Okay, we'll be back in the morning, you guys, and just message me if you have something you want me to address. Just go to my profile, find the message me and tell me what it is you need to hear about that's going to help you understand health issues you have, and understanding that insulin resistance is at the root of almost everything we're suffering from, especially heart disease. And we need to get this right so people can get healthy and not get sicker. One of the most interesting things out of this was that one of the last pieces where that 2023 study is showing so that we are healthier and live longer the more cholesterol we have. But we have to make sure that our body's utilizing the cholesterol properly and that it's not becoming toxic. And that is reducing sugar. Bear, thanks for joining me. And yeah, message me if you have questions, and I'll be back tomorrow morning at 8:30. I'm going to go get this dog out and run him so he can settle down. Okay. Bye, you guys.